So let's talk about game one between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma City won this game 114-88. Now, the score doesn't reflect the entire game because Minnesota got off to a really good start. They were up by 4 points in the first half. I thought the defense by Minnesota on SGA was really solid. They made it tough on him in the mid-range game. You could tell the length was bothering him at times. When Anthony Edwards got a chance to guard SGA, he was really solid on him when he got the opportunities. Obviously, the gamemanship from Anthony Edwards and the competitiveness is always fun to watch. You can tell that SGA and Anthony Edwards don't really like each other, and that's really fun to watch, very entertaining. And as the series goes forward, when Anthony Edwards has his moments, SGA has his moments as well. That is going to be fun to witness. Now, let's talk about the game in general. These 17 turnovers from the Minnesota Timberwolves, that is not a good sign. If they can't get their turnovers under control in this series, I don't think Minnesota has much of a chance to win because Oklahoma City does a really good job of turning defense into offense, and they will burn you in transition. They had 12 fast break points. On top of that, OKC turned you over 19.2 times a game. That led the NBA this season. So if they're able to generate those turnovers, get their defense rolling, all of a sudden Minnesota's not knocking down shots. They lose confidence. OKC runs away with these games. So Minnesota has to do a better job controlling the basketball. Julius Randle had 5 turnovers in that first game, and Anthony Edwards had 4. So 9 of their 17 turnovers came from their 2 best players. So again, if those 2 guys are your primary ball handlers and decision makers when it comes to work on your drive and kick game, so you get those catch and shoot threes, then those guys need to be better with the basketball and making decisions and not turning it over. Because if that happens, Minnesota's going to have a hard time staying in these basketball games because we know that OKC is going to go on their runs. No matter what the lead is, they know their defense can go to another level. They can ratchet up the pressure, the intensity. They make it really hard to make passes in those driving lanes and make passes in general where you think you have a good look, but OKC is able to get their hands involved and the ball pressures just can be really hard to deal with. You don't really have a mismatch with OKC. You can't just, hunt one guy and say, I'm going to go after Chet tonight. I'm going to go after Lou Dort, SGA. It doesn't work that way. You got to get OKC in rotation. Another thing I want to bring up is Minnesota's shooting. They took 51 threes, made 15 of them, but the 2 guys that really stand out to me is Dante DiVincenzo and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. The reason why I bring those 2 guys up is Dante DiVincenzo is shooting 25% from 3 in these playoffs. He has to get back to either his regular averages, which was 39% this season, or around 35, 37%. Heck, even 32 to 35 would be nice because if he can't shoot well from the 3-point line, and he's not knocking down his open shots, well, OKC can just pack the paint, which cuts off those driver lanes for Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. And all of a sudden, the spacing out there is very disgusting. And OKC is going to have a field day with their defense because they can say, you know what, 4-on-5, Dante, if you can beat us, great. If you don't knock down your shots, then it makes it harder to generate good offense. And Julius Randle won't have those driver lanes to put pressure at the rim. Another thing to look at is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. In the regular season, he shot 38% from 3. In the playoffs, he's at 27.8% from 3. So both of your reliable shooters are having a drop-off from 3 in these playoffs. Those guys have to knock down their shots because if they're not going to shoot well from the 3, well, again, the spacing is going to be all over the place. Minnesota's going to have a hard time getting any quality looks in the paint because OKC is going to pack the paint. They're going to dare you to shoot the 3. And if those guys can't be a threat, then it doesn't open up those driver lanes for Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. We saw the size of Randle and Anthony Edwards in full effect. They're able to go downhill, generate shots for their teammates, and get open looks. So it's not like Minnesota didn't get open looks. I know people are like, oh, they took 51 threes, but some of those shots were really good. They just didn't knock them down. So guys like Dante DiVincenzo, I think he shot 3 or 12 from 3. Naz Reid, 1 of 11 from the field. I think Naz Reid's an anomaly. I think he'll start knocking down the shots. My biggest concerns right now is the turnovers and the 3-point shooting from Dante DiVincenzo and Nickeil Alexander-Walker because the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to need their bench if they want to win this playoff series against OKC. Because you got to be nearly perfect against this team. If you're turning the ball over, that's a recipe for disaster. If you're not shooting the ball well from the 3 with those open looks, that's a recipe for success, for disaster. And if you're not able to score in the paint, another recipe for disaster because Oklahoma City had 54 points in the paint. Minnesota had 20 points. That's a huge disparity. You can complain about the foul baiting by SGA all day long. Both teams had 22 fouls called on each other. Even if SGA, let's just say there's 3 calls, and I think there was 3 of them in this game where it's like, yeah, you should have let that one go, ref. But at the end of the day, let's just say SGA is down to 10 free throw attempts. That's 4 less points. So they still win by 22. So it doesn't negate the fact that Minnesota is not knocking down their open shots. They have to be crisper with their passing because, again, OKC is really good at getting those passing lanes, making it really hard on the offense to make the right read. So if I'm Ant and I'm Randall, don't turn the ball over, because if you end up turning the ball over, they're going to score in transition, get momentum for their defense, and all of a sudden you have no option to score. Because if Dante and Nikhil Alexander Walker aren't scoring, what do you do there? Another thing to look out for is, will Minnesota deploy a zone defense? I think they should at times. So I expect Minnesota to be much better in game 2. I think they're going to have a little bit of a lead, like 7 to 10 points. And if it's in the third quarter, where you have to expect OKC to go on some type of run because their defense is so elite. Let's say they're going a 7-0 run. Now it's down to 3 points. I think at that point, if I'm Chris Finch, employ a zone. See if that throws OKC's offense off rhythm, because they're not a reliable jump shooting team. They do get cold. They're very streaky from 3. So if I'm Minnesota, play zone at times. Throw their offense off. Get them in situations where SGA is having a hard time, weaving through that zone. Also, don't forget this part, though. Make sure you're grabbing the rebounds, because OKC is really good at crashing the glass in those zone situations. So it's very important for Minnesota just to make these adjustments. Another thing for Rudy Gobert. 21 minutes is not enough for the series. He should be at 27 to 30 minutes, because his presence alone, I know he suffers on the offensive end, but his defense is so impactful that it's going to cut off those driver lanes for SGA, where he's going to have to think twice about, should I try to score on Rudy Gobert? Should I try to, get the rest to make a call? And if those foul calls aren't happening, now your defense is locking things down. And Minnesota's a really good defense. They've got the athletes to match up with OKC. I just think, a little bit more Rudy Gobert. I understand playing Naz Reid because you want to space the floor, and we expect Naz Reid to be much better in game 2. But it's very important to just put out Rudy Gobert just to keep things honest and unpredictable. And also, let's talk about OKC, because they did a fabulous job forcing turnovers, the 17 turnovers from the Timberwolves. And then look at J-Dub. I thought he did a really good job going downhill, had 19 points in this game. He had 8 rebounds and 5 assists, 5 steals. Again, he was all over the place on defense, even if he's not getting you like 25, 27 points a night. If he's generating 3 to 5 steals, that's extra possessions for Oklahoma City, and that means you put Minnesota on their heels. So J-Dub did a really good job tonight as the second option. Of course, SGA, the 31 points, the 14 free throw attempts. People are going to complain about, oh, well, he was foul baiting. He did a few of that, at times, but I wouldn't say the entire game. There was fouls that were legitimate. But again, if he has the free throw attempts down to 10 or even 8, they still win this game by double digits. There was other factors in this game which caused Minnesota to lose and to get blown out in the second half. If you're not knocking down your open shots, then you're just not going to win basketball games. If you're going to turn the ball over 17 times, you're not going to win a lot of basketball games in the playoffs, especially against a defense like this. Then we look at Chet. I thought he was really good tonight. He was able to cut to the lane, get offensive rebounds, get lob dunks. He was really good. 15 points for the Thunder. Overall, I thought the Thunder were just a better team. 54 points in the paint versus 20 shows me you were more aggressive, and the defense just ratcheted up the intensity, put more ball pressure on the Wolves, and forced them into a lot of turnovers. Now, again, my biggest concern coming into this round against OKC was Minnesota's playmaking. I know Ant's taking a leap. I know Julius Randle is really solid as a playmaker, but they don't have a pure point guard. And now you're putting responsibilities on your 2 main guys to make reads, play make, and score. And maybe they can't do all of that at the same time during stretches of the game. So it's very important for them to obviously limit their turnovers. They obviously got to knock down their shots, be faster with their passing, and get the ball in the target for the shooters. That way, when OKC goes to recover and contest, they don't have enough time to make up for all that space they gave to the open shooters from Minnesota. And most importantly, Dante DiVincenzo, Nikhil Alexander Walker have to knock down their shots. I believe Naz Reid will bounce back, but those 2 guys have to show up in this series. Otherwise, this series might end in 5 or 6 games with OKC going to the NBA Finals. Those are my thoughts for Game 1. I'd love to hear your thoughts about how this game went. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.